Martin Scorsese is a very controversial figure in the Marvel fandom because of his comments about Marvel movies. He said, "That's not cinema." Honestly, the closest thing I can think of them, as well-made as they are, with actors doing the best they can under the circumstances, is theme parks. It isn't a cinema of human beings trying to convey emotional, psychological experiences to another human being. A lot of people really do not like this quote, which you are absolutely entitled to your own opinions. Personally, I do not entirely agree with Scorsese because I think a lot of superhero movies manage to convey these human experiences that Scorsese was talking about. There's a reason Guardians of the Galaxy is one of my favorite movies of all time, and I will say that proudly with my whole chest. But I think it's also good for us to look at this quote and try to understand where Scorsese is coming from. Like with many things in life, things are not as black and white. There are excellent superhero movies, but there are also like mid ones and also duds. And let's be real, a lot of superhero movies tend to be formulaic, only attempting to hit a checklist of things that ought to happen in a superhero movie. As a result, these films, instead of telling stories, they feel like they only focus on creating spectacle and entertainment and completing that checklist. I think this is why Scorsese made the theme park comment. But why am I starting this video with this quote? Quite recently, I watched Zootopia 2 in IMAX. Before the movie started, they usually have these intros, right? Like the AMC We Come to the Theater intro with Nicole Kidman.
We come to this place for magic.
One of the things highlighted in the IMAX intro is the fact that watching IMAX with its big screen and all, it allows you, the audience, to feel like you are part of the movie. This is something that I admit I couldn't stop thinking about. Because when I was studying marketing, we were taught that FOMO, or fear of missing out, is a very powerful emotion. So when devising marketing campaigns, we were told that punching down on the FOMO is a very effective tool. This can come in a lot of forms. It can come in the form of creating experiences when selling your products or services, like Glossier doing a lot of these aesthetically pleasing pop-up stores that is ideal for people to like record and post on social media. Or it can also come in the form of making exclusive or limited edition products or services that makes you feel special for owning the products or experiencing the services. The reason I am making this connection is because I feel cinemas these days have been trying to appeal to our FOMO, to our desire to experience things. Part 1. Added value of going to the cinemas. Going to the movie theater can no longer be just about going to the movie theater, if that makes sense. For a lot of people, like myself, going to the cinema is always something that I like because I like films and I like watching them in cinemas as well. However, there are also a lot of reasons why going to the cinema has become too much of a hassle for a person. For example, you have the gradually increasing ticket prices and the expensive snacks. If you go on a film date, you can spend upwards of like $50 for just one date, and that's not including if you want to have like lunch or dinner. Then there's also the fact that even when you're paying so much, it doesn't guarantee that everyone else will have the same movie-going etiquette as you. I've heard instances of people being on their phones in the middle of the movie, talking over the movies, or even answering phone calls in the middle of movies. Like, how do you even do that? Like, wouldn't it be loud? Not to mention, these movies will more than likely end up on streaming platforms, and usually not even that long after they are released in theaters. So if you're not chronically online or you're not afraid of getting spoiled, you can just wait and watch things at home. And sometimes watching movies at home is nicer. At home, you can pause the movies for your own potty break. And then screen sizes isn't much of a problem these days as well, because TV screens are now very large. And you can even buy a projector if you want, like, you know, the experience of having stuff like projected, like you're watching things projected onto a screen. Not to mention, home sound systems are also very good these days. And in terms of the snacks, you can just buy them for much cheaper at the supermarkets. Because of this, that's why I feel like a lot of movie theaters try to package going to the theater as an experience beyond just like seeing the movies themselves. Movie theaters, especially the bigger chains, no longer just have regular screens. It's becoming quite common to have these luxurious screen options in movie theaters, like the first class of movie screens. Some movie theaters now also have in-house IMAX screens. Other theaters also have Screen X. This is a movie-going experience first conceived in South Korea, where you have the screen in front of you, and then to your left, and then to your right. And the idea is that you will be able to immerse yourself in the movie because you have these two 70 view of the screen and the world. And other theaters have dbox, which is like these 40 movies that you see in theme parks where the seats respond to the events of the movie. The seat sways and vibrates based on what happens on screen. In fact, recently I watched the newest SpongeBob movie in dbox. I wasn't really wowed by the experience. Like, it didn't enhance the watch experience in any way. And it was, But creating these experiences also extends in other ways, not only through the screens. For example, smaller cinema chains that cannot afford these insane screens instead do something more intimate and personal, like doing midnight screenings of The Room where you can throw spoons or quote the movie back to the screen. There are sing-along events as well for movie musicals. Of course, these days we see studios officially making their own versions of the sing-along experience, like with Wicked and K-pop Demon Hunters. A local cinema in Australia also did this thing called the month of Chalamet, where they screen Timothée Chalamet movies for the month of May. So yeah, it does feel like movie theaters have to go above and beyond to justify why you should spend your money with them. Part 2. If you think about it, this thing has been going on for quite some time. Focusing on creating experiences when creating art is not anything new. I feel like artists, not only filmmakers, love pushing the boundaries on how they can involve the spectators. In live theater, there has been a lot of history of theater makers finding ways to engage the audience beyond just the show that they are putting on. If you watch Crash Course Theater to see the history of theater making, you will see many instances of the audience being encouraged to interact with the actors on stage, like by throwing cucumbers when the actors mess up their lines. This is an actual thing they did in the past too, by the way. Even if we don't get into the history or the traditions of past live theater shows, you can still see this desire to immerse the audience through the architecture or the way the theater itself is set up. Just consider the ways that stages are constructed in these spaces. Some theaters have the stage elevated from the audience. Some theaters instead have the audience elevated using the tiered seatings. Some theaters look like a runway. Or some theaters are like the new Hunger Games theater show where it's in the round, so the stage is in the center and the audience surrounds the stage. The way the stages are set up in these theaters, they immerse the audience in different ways as well. Going back to movies, one of the ways that they try to immerse the audience is through playing with the screen sizes or the aspect ratios. I feel like this is one of the easiest ways to immerse the audience. However, there are of course other ways, like 3D, which was developed as early as 1922. And then we go above and beyond with like 4D experiences. 4D experiences go as far back as 2003 with the movie Rugrats Go Wild, which is the crossover between Rugrats and the Wild Thornberrys. In the movie, they use this technology called odorama, which is essentially scratch and sniff cards. So when you're watching the movie, there will be prompts on which section of the cards you need to scratch, and so like you scratch the cards and then you smell the cards to smell whatever is in the movie. Like, it's a flawed system, but it's definitely one of the ways that they've been trying to experiment with 4D experiences in mainstream theater, not just the theater in theme parks. This desire to immerse the audience as much as possible comes from our deepest human desires of wanting to belong or wanting to be part of a community or wanting to be part of just something. As humans, we are communal creatures and storytelling is a very communal activity. If we were to trace back the history of movies or live theater or even writing books, we can go all the way back to people sitting around campfires telling stories.
I call this one the campfire song.
But humans always desired more, so they pushed the boundary and they started to draw on cave walls to aid their storytelling, and we didn't stop. We kept pushing and pushing, and that led to what we have these days with movies, with theater, with books, with comic books, and all those things. Inherently, we do have this desire to up the ante, so to say, to create a more immersive storytelling experience because we want people to get more into it, into it. Part 3, but is this art for art's sake or capitalism? This is where it gets tricky. As much as humans love storytelling and we keep pushing the boundaries to involve the audience in our stories, is this completely art for art's sake? The thing is, to experience these bigger screens, these 270 screens, these moving seats, these reclining seats, you have to pay more than regular tickets. Is this so much about wanting to involve the audience more, or is this a way to charge more from people who visit the cinema less already? Because let's think about it, right? Like if you are a smaller cinema or if you're a family-owned cinema, you might not even have the resources to install these big screens or to maintain these screens. I imagine something like dbox would require a lot of maintenance because it is essentially a ride, like a theme park ride. And those things need to be maintained, otherwise they will break down. There is also an issue of how these experiences are only available also for just big budget movies or blockbusters, which calls into question whether this immersion is for art or just a way again to get more money by charging people more for their tickets, or this could also be a way to get more screenings. Let me explain. At some point around the 2010s, 3D movies were everywhere. It felt like every blockbuster was offered in the 3D format, even if the movie had no business being 3D. That's because the technology to convert 2D movies into 3D movies have become more commonplace. Like you don't need a special camera anymore to make 3D movies. You just need the finished product and then you are able to just convert that, making 3D movies have become more cost effective. Even if the filmmaker intended for the movie to be 2D, the studio can still take the movie and convert it into 3D because, again, the filmmaker themselves do not have to use any special cameras to create 3D sequences. And this is what happened very often back then. Movies that are intended to be 2D are then converted into 3D so they can be released in 3D. And this is considered a good financial decision because you can charge more for 3D movies and you can also get more screens to screen your movies, because then the cinemas are like, oh, now we need to offer the 2D and the 3D options because supply and demand, I guess. I'm not very good at economics and finance. However, because of that, you end up with cases like M. Night's The Last Airbender that was 3D, and for what? For the headache? These days, this predicament is dialed up to 11 because some of these offerings require specifically built screens. They don't only take up screen times from independent movies, but they also take up the real estate spaces that can be used to build just regular screens. Do you think I can watch something like It Was Just an Accident or Rental Family in Screen X? I don't think so. I think this is why Martin Scorsese said what he said. As much as these blockbusters can be fun, they also focus more on the spectacle rather than the story. And it just so happens that a lot of blockbusters these days are superhero movies. But it is also foolish to be like, this is a blanket statement that applies to every blockbusters out there, because that's not the case. It comes down to the intentions. What are the filmmakers' intentions? I bet for people like James Cameron and his Avatar movies, when he made the Screen X version of Avatar, I'm pretty sure he has intention behind it. Likewise, the Dune movies also have intentions of using the IMAX format because they want to show the scale of the world, right? The scale of the worms, the scale of the planets, and whatsoever. But while there are filmmakers like that, there are also filmmakers like Michael Bay who have rapidly changing aspect ratios in the middle of an action scene. Why? But what do you guys think? Have you guys ever watched movies in Screen X, IMAX, or dbox? What do you guys think of these experiences? Do you like these experiences, or can you go without them? Let me know in the comments. If you like this video, please consider leaving it a like, share it, maybe even comment on it. Also, consider subscribing to the channel too for future video essays, commentaries, and also fun videos. That's it for me. I feel like this video doesn't particularly have a conclusion.
Sometimes things just sort of
end. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you guys next time. Have a good day, night, evening, afternoon, morning. I'm reading out the time zones from my document. Anyway, bye guys.
And stories feel perfect and powerful because here they are.